fate and function. When the Druj were driven from Zenith, they left the territory in a parlous state, stifled by miasma and bereft of hope. After 6 months of hard work by magicians, priests, politicians, and warriors, the situation is finally improving. The final step to restore Zenith is the completion of the Crucible of Fate, a profound triumph that is slowly transforming the territory. This vast foundry in Italy will allow the artisans and architects of Urizen to work together to forge a new fate for Zenith, for Urizen, and for the Empire. The construction was overseen by the Master of the Koboldi, and the Concordium of Pallas and their allies invoked powerful autumn magic to ensure the work was completed more quickly than anyone had predicted. All that remained for Zenith to embrace their new arete was for the Urizen Assembly to pass a mandate endorsing the Crucible, and to provide direction and advice on how it could be best employed. The mandate presented an opportunity to settle an age-old debate that had been raging in Italy for many years. Should the Crucible favour work that was beautiful in nature, seeking to perfect the form, or be practical and effective and elevate function above all else? It is unlikely that this debate will ever end, but the greater majority of the Assembly declared that what Zenith needed most was for the work to be practical and effective. As Abel of Zenith Ascendant spread the mandate across the territory, the vision presented by the completed Crucible brought new hope to the occupants of every arcane spire, citadel, and temple who heard of it. No longer bereft of hope, Zenith is now set to embrace a new future. With Urizen ready to reap the dividends of their new Crucible, the Conclave have stepped in to arrange for yet more assistance. Sending the Order of the Golden Pyramid to provide assistance, welcoming Adamant's Koboldi to take up residence in the tiny passages beneath the Crucible, and requesting Estivus support the work. Fear of falling. Zenith has lost the bereft of hope quality, and is no longer stifled by miasma. Even after the Druj had been defeated, Zenith was left bereft of hope. Few people wished to return to a shattered land, poisoned and broken by the orcs of the Malum. Many of the former inhabitants who escaped to Morrow and Redoubt were encouraged to put down roots by the National Assembly, and a number are content with the new lives they have created for themselves. It seemed as if Zenith might never be restored. The completion of the Crucible has cast a stone into the deep waters of Urizen's sorrow, and from it a ripple of hope and anticipation spreads out across the mountains. As work proceeds on the defences being built in Lustri, fears that the Druj will soon return begin to recede, but it is the possibilities presented by the Crucible that bring renewed interest in returning to Zenith. Soon there are stoic people determined to rebuild the spires they were forced to flee, and there are even a few ambitious or far-sighted groups eager to found new spires in Zenith, drawn by the potential embodied in the Crucible of Fate. As the stones are set for new spires, the first of the new Ushabti are completed at the Crucible. The wealthier spires are able to acquire some of these tireless workers to help perform the onerous task of actually constructing their new homes. Others must make do with mundane labourers, or do the actual building work themselves. But here there is unexpected assistance from some of the territory's newest settlers. The Koboldi of Lord Stone, who have made homes for themselves at the Crucible, are eager to provide practical aid to the new settlers, putting their remarkable facility with stone at the service of the Urizeni. Urizen architecture has always been some of the finest in the Empire, but more than anywhere else, the new spires raised in Zenith reflect the history of the territory, as well as the influence of the Crucible. Great care is given to ensuring spires are defensible, and where the standard for such structures is airy, open and distributed, the new spires of Zenith tend to be more compact by Urizen standards. More carefully clustered together, a little more difficult to reach. More effort goes into making them secure and functional than beautiful and inviting. With the choices made for the Crucible, the architecture of Zenith will have a stoic grandeur rather than elegant grace. expressing a commitment to purpose rather than purity. The Crucible ensures a brave future for Zenith, but it cannot unmake the terrors of the past. Many of the wonders of pre-Druge Zenith have been lost. Some may be restored, but the splendour of others will never be recaptured. The Druge miasma has been dispelled, but the marks of the Malum Orcs on the land and the people will take a generation to heal completely. The courageous actions of the Highborn, especially the Granite Pillar under General Asenath, have seen the Druge driven out or destroyed, but scattered remnants of their malice still lurks in the dark corners of the wild territory. For now, though, for the first time since Zenith fell to the Orcs, there is hope for the future. A new home. Any Urizen character can transfer a starting resource to Zenith without the usual 2-crown fee for doing so. An upgraded resource can be transferred to Zenith at the cost of 2 crowns for each rank of upgrade. Named resources and fleets cannot benefit in this way. With hope restored to Zenith, new spires are being established. Any Urizen player may choose to relocate to Zenith, moving their personal resource to the territory. If the personal resource has not been upgraded, it can be transferred without the usual 2-crown fee required. This can represent relocating or finding a similar resource in the new territory. It is also possible to exchange an existing personal resource for a new type of resource in Zenith. For example, exchange a military unit for a mana site. Under normal circumstances, it is not possible to keep a personal resource that has been upgraded when changing territory. The completion of the Crucible presents a temporary opportunity to circumvent, however, this limitation, making it possible for existing Urizen characters to keep their upgraded personal resource when moving to Zenith. This incurs additional costs, however. A total of 2 crowns for each upgrade the resource has. Again, this represents relocating some or all of your resources, or finding a similar resource in Zenith, perhaps gaining some of the newly created Ushabti produced in the Crucible of Fate. It is even possible to change resource when doing this. A farm with 2 upgrades could be exchanged for a mine with 2 upgrades. There are 2 exceptions to this opportunity, however. A character with a named resource, such as a spoil of war, cannot take advantage of this opportunity to move or exchange an upgraded resource. Named resources are innately tied to the territory where they are located. It is also not possible to use this opportunity to transfer a fleet resource into landlocked Zenith for free. In all cases, taking advantage of this opportunity requires an email to plot@profouндecisions.co.uk. This opportunity remains open until the start of the Autumn Equinox 385 YE, after which the normal rules for transferring resources apply. Sunlight moving over mountains. The Heliopticon towers in Zenith have been repaired. Zenith will contribute to the national research projects of the Urizen. The Archmage of Autumn prevailed on the Eternal Estivus to offer their assistance in Urizen. But they are not the only Eternal of that realm with an interest here. The Sovereign Lord of the City of Bridges currently serves as a patron of the Doyen of the Spires, the diffuse college of magic that allows the magicians of Urizen to work together on magical projects. Prospero has provided incentives to the artisans at the Crucible of Fate to set to work to restore the key towers of the Heliopticon. With the aid of the new Ushabti, swift communication has been restored between Morrow, Redoubt, and the new spires being built across the highlands of Zenith. This means that the ability of the Doyen of the Spires to codify rituals has not been interrupted, and the upkeep of the unique college has not changed. Spider-like heralds of the Lord of the Loom are relocating alongside the new Urizen settlers, taking up residence in the rebuilt Heliopticon towers. The Golden Net. The Crucible of Fate provides practical and effective Ushabti to mines, forests and herb gardens throughout Urizen. The cost to increase production of these resources each season is reduced from 6 crowns to 3 crowns. The benefit of the reduced cost will persist until at least the start of the summer solstice, 386 YE. The primary purpose of the Crucible is to create and maintain large numbers of Ushabti, humanoid figures crafted from wood and clay by artisans and animated by magical energies. It is impossible to say what opportunities the Crucible might offer in the future, but there are immediate benefits to all of Urizen. The functional constructs made at the Crucible are able to perfectly perform a handful of simple tasks repetitively with minimal supervision, and their designs can be replicated by Ushabti crafters throughout the nation. They are ideal for working in mines, digging and extracting ore, or in forests and herb gardens where they can cut wood, dig herb beds and so forth. As a result, these Ushabti will prove invaluable to any Urizen citizen who wishes to maximise the production of their personal resource, making it cheaper and easier for them to do so. At present, anyone who owns a herb garden, forest or mine who wishes to increase production for a single season must pay 6 crowns to pay for additional workers, among other costs. The presence of the Crucible and Zenith means that these costs will be reduced for Urizen citizens. Based on the current numbers likely to be in use, the Civil Service calculate that for the coming year, the cost will fall from 6 crowns to 3 crowns. The benefits will endure for as long as the Crucible remains in Urizeni hands, but prognosticators caution that the costs may increase slightly in the future if demand for the Ushabti rises significantly. An administrative affair. If an architect of the Crucible is appointed, they could wield 3 powers. Without a title, these powers cannot be used. The Senate can approve the creation of this title through an administrative motion. The Crucible of Fate was initially constructed as a folly, and under normal circumstances, that does not create an imperial title. However, the benefits now arising from the Crucible require an architect of the Crucible, a citizen with an appropriate imperial title who can oversee matters. This requires a Senate motion to create, but as the work is already complete and there is nothing that could reasonably be varied, the matter will be put to the Senate as an administrative motion during the Friday night session of the coming Senate. Assuming they do not strike it down, the first architect of the Crucible will be appointed on Saturday afternoon via the tally of the votes. The architect of the Crucible has the usual responsibilities to ensure the security of the Crucible and the artisans who work there. In return, they gain 3 key benefits, some arising from the Crucible itself, others from the assistance of the Eternal Estivus. They can commission tailored Ushabti, purchase magical staves, and acquire star metal. Miracle and Wonder. The Ushabti work tirelessly and can provide permanent benefits to Urizen personal resources. The architect of the Crucible can use this ability once each season to allow a character to upgrade their resource. The Crucible of Fate helps Urizen artisan craft bespoke Ushabti. The designs are carefully tailored to excel in a single type of work, epitomising the concept that Ushabti should be first and foremost functional in nature. Such constructs are expensive and time-consuming to design and create, but the Crucible is the perfect place for such work to take place, provided people are prepared to pay the artisans involved. Once each season, during downtime, the architect of the Crucible can select a single Urizen character with a mine, forest, herb garden, farm or business in Morrow, Redoubt or Zenith, and commission the artisans at the Crucible to create bespoke Ushabti for them. This will upgrade their personal resource by 1 rank. The cost is 4 thrones for each rank the resource currently has, so to upgrade a standard resource costs 4 thrones, while a rank 3 resource would require 12 thrones. This is in place of all other costs. No mithril, white granite or weirwood is required. It does count as upgrading the resource, however, so it can't be done at the same time as a normal upgrade. Other opportunities that change how a resource is upgraded have no effect. The cost is set by the need to create custom Ushabti. To use this ability, the architect of the Crucible must ensure they have the appropriate amount of thrones in their inventory and email plot@profouндecisions.co.uk with the CID or name and details of the character they have chosen to assist. Perfect utility. The architect can purchase up to 3 ritual staves each season, fashioned by the artisans who work at the Crucible. Some of the most talented crafters in Urizen are taking advantage of the new workshops and foundries, and as well as working on Ushabti, they continue to make magic items for personal use and sale. The Golden Pyramid are not slow to recognise the opportunity offered by the presence of so many skilled artisans in one place. Magicians of the Order discuss their ideas with every artisan arriving there, looking for ways that the new Crucible might better serve Zenith and Urizen, while also advancing the manifesto of the Golden Pyramid. Assumptions that those using the Crucible might be expected to provide their skills for free are quickly put to rest by the mercantile politicians of the Order. The Golden Pyramid promotes the interests of artisans across the Empire, and fights to ensure that crafters and magicians alike receive adequate recompense for their labours. Any notion of the Crucible providing benefits for free is quickly dispelled. The intervention of the Golden Pyramid helps maximise the benefits provided by the Crucible, but at the cost of ensuring that everyone involved is well paid. Advising the artisans working at the Crucible, the Golden Pyramid helps ensure that a thriving trade in magical items is established. As part of this trade, the architect of the Crucible could purchase up to 3 ritual staves of any combination of realms each season. Marked by the stars. Estivus has contributed to the prosperity of the Crucible of Fate by providing 5 magical bronze birds that can help locate Ilium. The architect of the Crucible could purchase Ilium gathered from small deposits scattered across Urizen. In response to the plenipotentiary request from the Archmage of Autumn, the Prince of Shikal sends one of her heralds, the taciturn Keeper of the Bronze Birds, to meet the magicians at the Crucible. The Keeper speaks little, but what they do say is worth hearing. The Forge Mistress is mightily pleased by the construction of the Crucible of Fate, for she appreciates craftsmanship in all its myriad forms. But she is concerned that Urizen lacks access to the most important material of all, star metal, without which their works will ultimately fail. This is particularly galling to the Prince, not least because there are tiny amounts of Ilium scattered across the mountains of Urizen, a legacy of the countless stars that have fallen to Earth over millennia. The problem is simply that they are spread so far and wide that they are almost impossible to find. The Forge Mistress has sent her Keeper to help the Urizen resolve this problem. The Keeper possesses a glass aviary with 5 birds fashioned from bronze in the shape of raptors, named Alea, Hona, Ruza, Sind, and Fawn. If Urizen wish, then the Keeper will house the 5 hunters at the Crucible for 1 decade. From there they will fly out, scouring the mountains of Urizen, searching not for prey but for signs of the remnants of starfalls. As soon as they find one, they will bring word to the Crucible, and it will then be possible to gather the precious metal. It won't be cheap, but star metal is worth a king's ransom. The rewards should be well worth the costs. As a result, the architect will have access to a valuable ministry, allowing them to purchase Ilium. The ministry would continue to operate until the end of the spring equinox 395 YE, unless the Conclave were to place Estivus under enmity. It cannot function without the support of the Forge Mistress and her strange bronze birds. The Path of Prosperity. The Imperial Synod has raised the prospect of consecrating the new Crucible with True Liao. A shrine at the Crucible of Fate could be consecrated to prosperity, to provide inspiration to the artisans and architects who work there. The aura would increase the number of items available to the architect and allow the Urizen Assembly to influence their nature. During the spring equinox, Abel of Zenith Ascendant submitted a statement of principle to call for the consecration of the Crucible of Fate with True Liao, and Herminius of the House of the Wanderer also raised a statement urging citizens to attend such a ceremony. Both statements passed with a greater majority. Though the Crucible of Fate is not associated with any known paragons and exemplars, so it could not be a memorial, it is clearly a place where the tenets of prosperity are observed and practiced. A shrine or temple could still be consecrated within the structure, offering spiritual solace to the artisans and architects who work there, and to those who visit to purchase magical items in Ushabti. This would serve as a place of solace and spiritual support to those working there, perhaps a place to relax and meditate after work, or a lively meeting room where merchants and artisans could meet to discuss deals and arrange fair prices for their work. The Urizen National Assembly, or the Prosperity Assembly, could enact the following mandate. Strive, toil, and claim the just rewards of your labours. We send named priest with 1 dose of true Liao to consecrate the Crucible of Fate to the virtue of prosperity, to remind all who work there that no reward is beyond our reach if we strive for it. If this mandate is enacted, a permanent stream of architects and crafters will visit the Crucible of Fate, as well as merchants who come to trade there. The architect of the Crucible would gain access to 3 additional ministries, allowing them to purchase magic items from the artisans working there. Each ministry will have a theme: ritual foci, weapons, armour, mage robes, and the like. During future seasons, the Urizen National Assembly would be able to change the theme of one or all of these additional ministries through the use of a statement of principle that achieved a greater majority. If multiple such statements are delivered, the one with the greatest margin would take effect. Achilles. A tomb to the exemplar Achilles of Damochan's Forge could be built at the Crucible of Fate. There is an alternative proposal, however. During the spring equinox 382 YE, the Prosperity Assembly recognised Achilles of Damochan's Forge as an exemplar, and the General Assembly concurred in the summer of that year following his tragic death. Allegedly murdered by a soldier of the Quiet Steppe during a battle, Achilles was known to be a skilled trader and negotiator, as well as an adept artisan. Some of those working to establish the Crucible of Fate are of the opinion that the great structure might serve as a suitable memorial to the exemplar and the inspiration he provides, especially since Damochan's Forge itself is soon to be in a League territory. Mandate. The prosperous are not selfish. We send named priest with a dose of true Liao and 4 crowns to establish an inspirational memorial for the exemplar Achilles of Damochan's Forge, who shared all that was worthwhile with those who deserved it. If this mandate is enacted, a memorial for Achilles of Damochan's Forge would be integrated into a suitable hall of the Crucible of Fate where the true aura would be created. Urizen tradition places little stock on the corpse, so there would be no requirement to move the remains of the dead artisan to Zenith. The memorial would serve as a place to meditate on the nature of prosperity. It would potentially attract pilgrims from across the Empire to visit the site and gaze on the wonders of the Crucible of Fate. There can be no doubt that placing the tomb in such a prestigious place would provide it with a suitable grandeur. Somewhat regrettably, the historical records contain relatively little information on the life and accomplishments of Achilles. The General Assembly failed to include details of the signs exhibited by the inspirational figure during his life in the Judgment, so his life is largely a matter of oral history only. Nonetheless, he was known to be a brilliant and effective architect, and is believed to have earned significant sums of money buying and selling magic items. As such, he is an inspiration to those who look to profit from their arts, and they will be drawn to the Crucible to share the rewards of their efforts with others. As always with an inspirational tomb, it is impossible to be certain exactly what effect the inspiration would provide, but the prognosticators are confident that it would provide the architect of the Crucible with a ministry that would allow them to purchase magical items each season. However, these would include unique creations made available by specialised artisans from across the Empire, travelling to the Crucible to benefit from sharing their endeavours with others. Initially, these items would be those designed to benefit magicians, But again, the Urizen National Assembly could use a statement of principle to change that theme. Unfortunately, there is a potential drawback. The one detail that is officially recorded about Achilles is that he was murdered by a Navarre citizen, apparently while venturing away from Anvil through the Sentinel Gate. Idanak Listing Beacon denounced the murder in the Navarre Assembly in the strongest possible terms, calling out the murderer for their lack of pride and loyalty, and calling for the murderer to come forwards to face the judgment. Sadly, it seems the killer was no Azala, and the cold-blooded murder of one of Urizen's preeminent merchant magicians remains unsolved. The lives of many exemplars and paragons end in violence, but in most cases those deaths are a matter of ancient history. Creating an inspirational tomb to an exemplar that was brutally slain by a member of the Navarre barely 3 years ago could have unexpected consequences. Small tunnels. Adamant's Koboldi have taken up permanent residence beneath the Crucible of Fate. As the Crucible of Fate was being completed, the master of the Koboldi discovered that a number of Adamant's creatures had taken it upon themselves to carve narrow tunnels and tiny caves into the rock deep below Spire Calator. The diminutive miners are normally scrupulous about their work, but they appeared to assume that the invitation to take up residence there also included them, and so they had neglected to inform anyone of their intentions. After the misunderstanding was discovered, a request was made for the Conclave to decide if some of their number should be permitted to remain at the Crucible once the work was complete, although prognosticators warned that it would be almost impossible to predict what the outcome of that decision might be. In the end, the Conclave took the magnanimous decision to allow Adamant's servants to adopt the Crucible as their new home, and that appears to have worked out for the best. The Koboldi who now dwell there seem eager to offer what aid they can provide to their new neighbours, at the Crucible and beyond. Surprisingly, there seems to be no visible drawback to the decision, at least for now. Out of character design. We've taken the decision to include some out-of-character design notes because there were a number of actions that players took, all of which affected this Wind of Fortune to a greater or lesser extent, and we wanted players to have a better understanding of how they came together to create the outcome for the Crucible. Most of the details laid out in the Wind of Fortune represent the final impact of the recently completed Crucible of Fate. It is important to note that the primary benefit of this epic structure was to avert the fatal sense of doom imposed by the Druja's reign of terror. This was a problem Urizen needed to overcome, otherwise Zenith would slowly have become desolate and abandoned. The primary choice in the original Wind of Fortune was between 3 possible new arites for Zenith. Selecting the Eye of the Heavens, a powerful magical observatory, would have led to a Wind of Fortune focused firmly on magic and the stars. Choosing the Radix of Truth, a numinous temple, would have produced a Wind of Fortune focused on religion, faith, and miracles. By opting for the Crucible of Fate, a grand foundry for artisans and architects alike, Urizen has elected to give Zenith a future founded on commerce and craftsmanship, and so the wind reflects that. We will use the Crucible as a source of new plots for Zenith in the future, and when we do, we'll try to be guided and inspired by the themes the Crucible represents. The Crucible represents a new story for the territory, just as the decision to adopt a new future as the City of Masks reshaped Sarvos. This was a more ambitious and expensive commission, though, reflecting the decision to use an appraisal to open up new opportunities for the territory. As a result, the Crucible provides additional mechanical benefits, reflecting the greater scale of the problem and the costs involved to fix it. When setting the benefits the Crucible provides, we took account of the decision of the Autumn Archmage to ask Estivus to assist the efforts. This is a particularly auspicious choice, since the Forge Mistress is driven to build, construct, and create. Her ambition is to reshape entire worlds. She seeks to encourage others to do the same. As such, the Crucible reflects the perfect embodiment of her interests, and we wanted the benefits the Crucible provided to reflect that. However, we don't create a Wind of Fortune that involves multiple parts by looking at each element in isolation. We look at the whole thing together and decide on a single set of benefits as a result. We flavour the description to reflect the different elements because it makes for a better setting, but you can't deconstruct the text to separate out what each lever did. We created the effects of the Crucible as a single wind. There is no meaningful sense in which some of these benefits were provided by the Commission and some by the Plenipotentiary. They both came together to provide the effects laid out above. We didn't change the play balance of the game benefits to reflect the involvement of the Order of the Golden Pyramid. At the moment, it is not possible to gain a direct mechanical benefit by asking a Conclave Order to get involved without a clear opportunity that lays out what any outcome might be. That decision didn't fundamentally change the magnitude of the benefits the Crucible can provide. What it did do was strongly flavour the resulting outcome. The Manifesto of the Golden Pyramid encourages members to charge for their services, so we used that approach in a number of places in the Wind of Fortune to set the benefits. Thus, the Crucible produces more significant rewards than it might have otherwise done, but the architect of the Crucible will need to pay accordingly. Finally, we elected not to add any additional ramifications for the presence of the Koboldi at this time. There is quite enough going on in this Wind of Fortune already, so we felt it was better not to complicate matters further, and instead leave the consequences of that decision for other winds. There will be plenty of other opportunities to develop the story of Urizen's new alliance with Adamant's builders in the future.